Well, just to kick things off, I'd love if you both could introduce yourself and your business and just tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got here, how you started this business in the first place.
Great. Well, I'm Daisy Faith, and this is my husband, Chad, and we started Studio Giclee about 2 years ago. And I come from an artist background, so I'm a painter. I went to school for interior design and art and have been doing that for many, many years, the painting. And I realized when we moved to Wilmington, North Carolina, because we had moved from Los Angeles, that there just wasn't any good Giclée printer in town. And so I had this guy next to me, and his family had a printing business in Nebraska for 30 years. And he went to the Savannah College of Art and Design and worked in Photoshop and color correction in LA for over a decade. So I was like,
Yep.
oh, brainwave.
I wasn't doing much of anything, so no. I was working in the movie industry, television and movie, doing graphic design there because there's a studio here in town. But I was getting a little tired of that because it was 12 hours, 12-hour days, and it's a lot of work and a lot of demand. And then when a show essentially ends, then there's like a huge break until you get on another show. So the steady stream of income is not so steady with that.
Right.
So this was actually an opportunity for us to kind of utilize what we knew in collaboration and also fill a hole in the market here in Wilmington, North Carolina. So
Yeah, I mean, it
yeah.
sounds like match made in heaven. Y'all really had
Yeah.
everything you need. So once you had the idea, kind of what did it look like? How did you start the business? How did you start finding artists? What did that look like for both of you?
That's all this right here.
Well, it's funny because I already, before I even moved back, because I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina,
Mhm.
but was in LA for about 11 years. And I stayed connected to some artists here. And when I moved back, I quickly joined a painting group where it was just kind of supporting each other. So I had all these friends who were painters, and they just had a really hard time finding prints in Wilmington. And they tried the online places, and it's like you order it and you get it and you don't like it, and then you order it again, and it's just you can't really talk to the person on the other line. So I just had that idea. And then Chad, as I said, with his family having the print business and then working in the movie industry, they had worked with a lot of large format printers. So we ended up buying a printer, and it was pretty seamless. Like, I don't want to say like it was easy, but because I was already connected to all these artists, I could use myself as a guinea pig. I could use my friends as guinea pigs. And then word of mouth, it just kind of blew up. Like, we were working out of my paint studio, which we had added on to the house. And within, I would say literally within 2 weeks, I was like, I can't paint in here because there are prints everywhere. I can't get paint on people's prints. So it was pretty crazy. And it's just been word of mouth ever since.
Pretty
And
grassroots, yeah, for the most part. Like, and then using like Google, getting on their what do you call
just
that?
like listings and
Search,
reviews.
yeah.
Yeah, their review, just asking people to review us, and then utilizing the word Giclée in our business name is also, they always say like put where you are and what you do in your business name, because then when people search for that, you come up. So
Yep.
there's only one other like Giclée kind of printing place in town, and I think they're called Canvas Giclée or something. So that was kind of our big competition. But they're like on the other side of town, and he's been around for a while, and he's actually been trying to sell us his business since we
Love it.
started. Maybe that's the inside.
Yeah. Well, it's just funny because there are some other print shops in this town, but none of them are just working with artists. So they do
Mhm.
vinyl banners, they do postcards, they do business cards, they work with all kinds of people, and we only work with artists. So I think that really sets us apart because, as you know, being an artist yourself, it's just a very like minutia thing that we do. You really want the colors to look right. You really want the quality. And that's where Chad comes in, because he had gone to SCAD and worked in color correction actually for a big corporation in LA for over 10 years. Like, that's his specialty. So it's getting the colors really right and then making the prints look good, because if you don't have that part right, the print's never going to come out well if the colors are wrong.
Yeah, that's what I worked at for the Skechers Shoe Corporation
Mhm.
in Manhattan Beach, California. for 12 years, and my job was essentially color correcting all the product of the shoes that went on the website. So like the reds and everything had to be just right, because if you order a pair of shoes and you get there and it's like, well, this is purple in real life, but it's red on the website, then you're going to return that stuff. So, the demand to have it exactly correct was pretty ingrained in me in that job, and that's pretty much all I did. So
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
when you work in the movie industry, it was like even more intense. So it's like you're making all anything you see in a TV show, whether it be a neon sign or the menu or signage in the back or whatever it is, had to be really, really perfect.
every logo for every business, all that, yeah.
Yeah, so he's
Wow.
just have a wealth of experience, and I'm kind of like coming from the artist side, and he can do the tech side, and then we bring it together, and it's like now we can explain to people why something works or why it doesn't work.
Yeah, and it's interesting because printers just don't really look at printing stuff the same way as artists look at printing stuff, because for a printer, it's like a lot of times, their focus is printing business cards or envelopes or whatever it may be, and that's like quantity by mass, so it's like it's
Right.
about like how much of this do you need? You need 250 business cards. Well, then I got the image right, and then I mass produce it. But with art, it's more like there's more nuance to it. And I actually worked in a couple of the printers here in town during COVID, because the ended up being printing was an essential business, and we were still trying to make some income when we first moved here. So I worked with a lot of the printers in town, and like, no disparaging, nothing bad about them. Like, they're doing great, but their just focus is in art, because like
Right.
that's not going to bring them a lot of money. Vehicle wraps and printing business cards and all that stuff is what they're geared for. That's what they're geared for. That's their focus. And so when we did this, it was important for us to kind of make sure that we are known as a business that's for artists, about artists. Like, we don't do business cards. People have asked us like about printing business cards. Like, we just don't do that. And we don't, there's a lot of stuff we don't do that other printers do. So
it's a very niche
Yeah.
service that we offer, and I think that that's why we have so many good reviews and people just keep recommending us, just because you know what you're going to get, and that we're going to work with you one-on-one until it's right. And so that's just very special, I think, in this decade.
Well, yeah, and it's like you do your one thing and you do it well versus trying to be a jack of all trades. And I think that's what's so hard. I mean, I talk to so many artists, and they're always, whether they already are doing prints or want to get into prints, it's like the hurdle of, okay, well, I finally want to do it, but now I'm spending all this money just to get the print even right. And so to have a team like, the two of you, it sounds like you really take that burden off of it. Can y'all talk about what the process looks like? So if I came to you and I wanted to start making prints tomorrow, how would that go? What does that look like for artists that don't know?
Yeah, of course. So if you're in Wilmington, North Carolina, or the surrounding area, we do have artists that travel like a couple hours to see us. But you, couple options. One, bring in your artwork, whether it be a painting on paper, canvas, whatever it is. And we can either scan or photograph it, color correct it, do a small test print, and then you would come back and check that. And this painting right here, for example, you can see there's little ones hanging on the wall there. This is a big painting that someone brought in. Chad has color corrected it, that we then do the small test print. The artist comes back and checks that. We always start with two options, one slightly brighter than the first one. Usually one of those works, but if there are any adjustments the artist wants to make, we'll make adjustments from there. Then we lock in those settings, and then reordering from there is easy, because that's the hardest part, is getting that locked in.
And that first part, we it's a flat fee, $40 per piece of art. So with that, like with this piece of art, this is $40. So he gets the test prints, and then we keep all our digital files.
Awesome.
On file. And then we also can email you a copy of your digital file if you do want to use it on your website, or in some other way. But we tried to be different from other places where they charge per size. So sometimes for a scan, I paint large, and sometimes I was paying like $100 or more for the scan, the color correction, and then maybe the color wasn't right, and it's like, oh, I just spent $100 on this thing, I don't even really like it, and I'm stuck with this file, and now maybe the painting's gone and sold, and it's like what I'm stuck with. So that's why that process is so important to us, to get it right. And we just try to make it really fair with that flat $40 rate to make it affordable. Because we do know, we just had a guy from Raleigh bring in 12 paintings, and he had like probably 15 more in his car, but he was like, I can only do 12. And so we went ahead and, captured all those for him. And now he's ready to go on making a print collection. If you are not in town or near us, we can work with your digital file. We have like an artist, Hope Olson, who works works in Michigan.
Sorry.
We have an artist, Hope Olson, who lives and works in Michigan, and she already has great digital files. They're already color corrected and stuff. And so she just sends them to us and we print them out. And we did go back and forth with her a little bit when she became a first client, making some test prints, sending them to her, making sure she liked them. Did she want to adjust anything? But now it's just a matter of her reordering, and it's easy. And so it just kind of depends. Are you local? Are you, far away? And I do have blog posts on our website that kind of state everything. Like if you're a long distance customer, if you're a, in town customer, so people can read on how to work with us easily.
Yeah. I mean, and I love the idea of, even if it's, driving distance, like Wilmington's a great place. Like I could see myself coming for vacation and just knocking it all out once a year or something. Like come for a long weekend, scan all my stuff. I mean, I don't know. That's just me talking, but I think there's a lot that could be great.
We have great beaches here. It's pretty nice year round if you don't mind a little bit of humidity.
Yeah, it is a vacation destination. We actually have a guy in town right now. He's going to be in town for the next week, and he's from New York, and he vacations here. Same thing. He was like, yeah, I'm just going to get some prints done while I'm in town. And so yeah, the guy from Raleigh visits his parents in Oak Island. So I mean, it just you make it work, if you want to work with us or have that little extra attention.
Right. And then if I were to purchase my prints, I'm ready to print them. Is it in groups of certain amounts at a time? Do I have to buy packs of 5 or 50, or I don't know if that's the best way to ask it, but you know what I'm saying?
We don't make you order any quantities. We do have a $25 minimum order, and that's it. So, an 11 by 14, for example, on velvet watercolor paper, I believe is $12. So 2 of those, you'll hit the minimum. So it's very small quantities. We also realize that as artists, we don't usually have the space to, have a whole bunch of prints just waiting when someone buys it. And also then they can get damaged sometimes. So it really depends on, are you the kind of artist who already has a really big following and you're selling prints regularly and you can have a stock in place? If you can, I think that's a great thing to do. But if you can't, we work with another artist who actually, you just had her on the show, Kelsey Howard.
Yeah.
She's local, and she just, every time she gets a print order, then she sends us the order, and it just works like that. And she comes and picks up a few times a week. So, either way, as long as you meet the $25 minimum, we're fine with that.
Yeah, that's great. I love that you offer that. I think it's so beneficial for artists too, at different levels. You're not, again, another reason to work with you. You're meeting artists where they are. And I'm sure that's, Daisy, your background of just knowing what it's like to actually be an artist. We function differently.
Exactly. Yeah, we're so used to artists coming in and they have no idea where their files are, and they bring their laptop, and their desktop looks like mine. It's just files everywhere. And every artist comes in and it's we're very organized in one way, but usually in the tech aspect, it's just at the junk drawer.
I know I have my laptop and my desktop, and I've vowed to myself my desktop computer has to stay clean. I'm my laptop can get as messy as it wants, because it's I'm like that. My whole desktop is saved folders and stuff, and then this computer, I'm do not mess it up.
Yeah.
Keep it clean.
Chad's the king of staying organized, like he said, everyone's file, because you don't know how many artists they'll be like, can you email me my file? And we will. And then 6 months later they've lost it, and Chad's like, oh, here it is again. So at least someone's staying on top of the file.
And most print shops will and I can't speak for all print shops, but I know the majority of them tend to clean out their drives at least once a year, if not 6 months. And we purposely bought like I have a 12 terabyte drive, and then I have another 10 terabyte drive that so we can keep as much art as we can. And if we'll ever get to a full maximum, I'll buy another one, just because I think it's important to, especially with artists, not to, but to let them know that there's always a place where their art is, just like almost like we're like a bank for artists, really, like in a weird way.
Yeah. Well,
We
and
keep it all here for you.
that's rare. I mean, I understand why businesses don't do it as well, but like, even like with me, like photographers I've worked with 5 years ago, I'm like, oh shoot, I really should have, like, where did that original file go? Like, it's like I have the 10 size down version because I've re-downloaded it so many times or whatever. So I really
Exactly.
love that y'all do that. Kind of thinking
And then
through, or go
I
ahead.
was going to just say, you mentioned ordering. So as far as ordering goes, when you are at that point, you can order off our website, and you can just email us or text us, and we're very easy to work with. We have some people who order large amounts, and so we have like an order form on our website where you can literally just fill it out, and you're not paying for anything yet, but we can check it. And then we have people like Kelsey and people who order frequently, and we kind of know their files are good. They know their sizes are good. And so they can reorder on the website, just like online shopping. So, but when we onboard a new client, we do make sure to like really check the files. There's not going to be cropping, because we don't want to take anybody's money unless we know that their file is going to print well. So just to go over that with you, because that is kind of important. I always hate like just paying for something and I don't even know, well, is that going to work? What if my file, some people don't know, and they're like, send us a 72 DPI file, and it's like maybe they paid $200 for some prints, and we're like, we're not going to take your $200 if we can't print it well.
Yeah. Well, and I love that too, just super basic. Like, we're talking to someone, like a real person who gets it on the other end of the line. This isn't some huge online company where you're talking to like Chad in the chat of like,
Yes.
hey, I still haven't gotten my print, or this isn't working and I've already paid you $200. So I love that, I can email you and it's one of you two on the other end, or, I'm sure you have a team too, but like, it's great to know there's a
It's mostly going
person
to be
on the other
her.
end of the line.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know
There's
if
no
you
team. It's just us. It's really just us. So you will get one of us. And we are literally texting back and forth with clients all day. Like, hey, does this cropping look good? Oh, we noticed, like, normally you remove your signature, but I still see your signature on this file. Would you like us to remove it? And like, we do little things like that, complimentary. And so it's just like, we have friendships with our clients and a real back and forth. So it really is like a good relationship, until the end. So
Yeah, I really love
To
that.
the end.
until the end of their order.
I was like, yeah, until they.
Well, I think a lot of the listeners, I just know personally, a lot of artists have a lot of questions about prints, and I kind of want to run through those. But I think first and foremost, I would just ask you, like, what are some of the biggest questions you get with people that maybe haven't done prints before? Just like paper and all these
Yeah.
different things.
So we've kind of boiled it down. We don't offer every kind of paper. We've really kind of figured out what people most like, and we order just that. So for us, we order, or we offer a velvet watercolor paper, and this is a sample pack of that. And you can see that a lot of things just print beautifully on it. It doesn't matter if it's acrylic, oil, watercolor, pen and ink, whatever it is.
Even photographs.
It's a really nice
Yeah.
paper. It has a little bit of a tooth. It's soft. It's got that watercolor finish, and it's obviously archival, meaning Giclée. And this is our most popular paper.
It's thicker than your standard 20-pound, like printer paper that you put in your.
Yeah. And I always love paper that has a tooth for prints, because
Yeah.
it just makes it feel like I didn't print it in my printer.
Yeah, it's aptly named watercolor paper because it's like any watercolor paper you have, it's got that kind of grit to it. Yeah.
But again, it doesn't, some people get confused, like, oh, does it have to be a watercolor I print on it? And no, it just has that nice finish to it.
Yeah.
So we do offer that. We also offer canvas. So we like to show that, you can also print on canvas. I think one question we get a lot is, do you have to put glass on canvas? No, you have to put glass on the paper to protect it, but you don't have to put glass over canvas. And that's really important, because if you want to order prints in both, you can, and you just can let your customers know that, say you want like a really big gallery wrapped print over the couch in a beach house, I would most likely recommend the canvas because they wouldn't have to put glass over it. It's very hardy. It's pretty, like you can scratch it. It's very, like if you have kids or sun hitting it, you know, it will last a long time. Most of these products, if cared for properly, will last up to 100 years. And that's kind of what the Giclée archival means. As far as other questions, we get questions about borders all the time. All of our prints come borderless unless otherwise requested. So we do have this visual aid. So borderless obviously means no border. So that means if you order it at 8x10, it's going to come 8x10 and it's going to go to the bleed. Now, some people, and I know you've probably had this issue, Haley, is like you order, like you have an 8x10 print and you go buy a ready-made frame to put it in, and it's like, oh, maybe the frame mat was cut like weird or something, and maybe it's like too big or too small or whatever that case may be. So I always tell people to check that before, like depending on how you want to frame it. If you feel like sometimes an 8x10 is going to have a gap after you've matted it, then I would suggest an excess border. And what that means, we call it an excess border because we add it on top of the size. So 8x10, we then add the border on top of that. So the paper actually gets bigger than 8x10. And that's good to know because say you do want a little bit of a lip to tape it underneath the mat, that gives you that little bit of extra. Some people just want to do a standard border, which is what we call it when the border is added within the limits. So again, if it's an 8x10 and it's a standard border, that means the art gets smaller and the border gets added within the limits. So the paper is still going to stay 8x10, but the art gets smaller and the border added within. We don't actually crop the artwork, it just gets reduced. So to allow for the border. So that's a system we came up with because a lot of people have different, when you say border, everyone has their own idea of what a border is. Like, is it added within, on top of, you know, all that kind of stuff. So we thought standard means added within the limits, excess means added outside of the limits, and it actually gets bigger.
That makes
That was
sense.
something that came from my printing background, is like most printers, when you say border, like they're going to do a standard border. That's just the way it is, just because like you're printing on an 8x10 sheet of paper, or whatever, then you don't add to it.
They're not thinking of it like an artist. I mean, that happened to
Right.
me at the other local printer in town. I had order with border, and then I was like, why is it, wait, now my art's smaller. Like, no, I wanted an 8x10. And they're like, well, no, you ordered an 8x10, which means the paper's 8x10, not the artwork. So those are just like little pitfalls that happen. I think another thing that artists are always asking us, aspect ratios, and we have an aspect ratio chart on our website that we created because I find this very confusing. Again, from that artist brain, I'm not a mathematician. So we have like all the sizes listed in the aspect ratio, which means like, let's say again, you have an 8x10 piece of artwork, but you get a client request and they want to get like a 24x30 or something. Well, that is in the same aspect ratio. It's a 4x5. So we can print it larger without any cropping or anything like that. But sometimes, I mean, so many times we get an artist like bring in, say, an 11x14, and they're like, I want to print this at 30x40 or whatever. And it's totally not the same ratio. So we can do that, but you will get cropping. So that's a lot of the back and forth we go through with artists, just making sure.
It's surprising to me, as long as I've been doing art, how much math is involved with art.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what intimidates people. I mean, I just think even like, it sounds so simple, but even just like having a chart on your website or explaining, like the way you just explained it to me, aspect ratios always kind of make my brain hurt, and it shouldn't make my brain hurt, but it does. And so even just the way you explained it and the way that it sounds like you're mapping it out makes it so helpful. And just having someone on the other line being like, okay, are you sure you want it 30x40? Because we're gonna have to cut this. And like, that's really helpful. And that's what artists, I mean, sometimes we just need a little bit of hand holding because it's our artwork and we love it. And I think your border, like the questions you answered about border too are so helpful because that is an issue. Like if you're telling people, well, you can go out and buy, you know, an 8x10 ready-made frame, but it comes and your art doesn't fit in said frame, or it's way too big or it's way too small. It's like, that can really affect sales too and affect, you know, your business. So I love that you're doing all of this because it's a lot of things that I think it can be confusing or people just don't think about, because it's like, at the end of the day, people are like, I just want prints. They don't think about all these little details that come along with it.
There's a lot on, and on our website too, you can download our aspect ratio chart so that we've sent out last Christmas to all our clients, like little mini versions of it too. So, we try to make it as easy as possible so that everyone can be like, oh, I find my art and I go across the line and be like, oh, I can go bigger or smaller. And then Daisy has, like she's mentioned before, on our website, we have a blog that she posts a lot of this stuff that explains borders, explains aspect ratios, different things like that to help. So if there's any questions, I mean, anybody has any questions, I would suggest going to our website and checking it out, because a lot of those questions might be answered just there alone.
Yeah, I mean, we do get the same questions all the time. So that's why I created the blog, which is, if you go to the website, studiogiclee.com, click on resources, all the blogs will pop up, and it's just all those common. And I have a lot of visual aids too that kind of explain borders, because I'm very visual. Like if you're like vocally explaining borders to me, I can get it. But if I see a picture, I'm like, oh yeah, now I really get it. I understand what you're saying to me.
Yes. And I was actually reading your blog before this call, just looking at all the different things. I was like, this is really helpful. And even the people that are listening that are not watching this on YouTube, like, should go to the YouTube and watch you hold up the stuff you did earlier, because that was so helpful. I mean, it sounds like it should be easy, but sometimes, like, we are visual people as creatives. I think probably 95% of the people listening to this are like, I need to see it visually to understand it. And so I love that your blog has that. I think that's really beneficial.
Yeah, super helpful. And then the one thing I'll mention as well is, just for clients that aren't in Wilmington that we really can't work with in person, when you are ordering a print, you're going to want your file to be 300 DPI. So 300 dots per inch. And that's like print quality. So we get a lot of files, and they're like 72, like web quality, and people are like, oh, well, this print at 16 by 20 or whatever. And it's like, we explain it to them, we show them it's going to be a little fuzzy. If you want to go smaller, we can maybe make it work, but like, we wouldn't recommend it. So if you're taking pictures at home or scanning at home, do it, as at high of a DPI as you can, at least 300. And then, like I said, with clients that aren't in town, I mean, some artists do know Photoshop and Lightroom and all that stuff, so you can kind of color correct it yourself. And like I said, you can then order a test print from us. We do little small test prints for, it depends, like $10 or $20. You could get one to multiples, and then we can ship them to you and you can check them, because we can really color correct well in person when we have the side-by-side painting and print. And that's what we do all day long, is compare and contrast, make sure it looks like the original. But say you're in, wherever, Charleston, and we don't have access to your original, you're going to be more responsible for getting the color right. And then we can make little adjustments. Like, say you received the test print and you're like, oh, I really like it, but I want it to be a little brighter. And so we can make adjustments like that. But again, getting that file is your most critical part of the whole process, because if the file isn't good, the prints won't be good.
How do you recommend artists that don't work with you get that file? Like, is it best to have a certain camera, a specific scanner, take it to someone to scan it? I mean, I'm sure you see all different things, but is there any just initial advice you would have?
I would say, if you have like if you have someone locally who can scan it for you, I mean, there just aren't a lot of great people who can color correct. I mean, that's the whole reason we created this business, because
Right.
I just couldn't find anybody who did it well in the area. But a lot of artists can take really good pictures of their artwork. I've even seen success with the iPhones. You can now take photos in the RAW mode,
Mhm.
and we've printed from those.
If you do have your iPhone, like, there are settings in it, when you go to your camera, like, you don't want, a lot of the base settings will keep it like, it'll be like a hacked file or something, and it'll
Right.
be a lower DPI. But if you go into your camera, I haven't done it in a while, but I know that there's like a camera setting. You want it to basically set it for as high. I think there are DPI in there. Like, get it
Mhm.
as high quality as you can. Now it's going to eat up a lot of memory on your phone. So, take your photographs and then airdrop those to your computer or whatever, and then send them to wherever you need to send them. But take them off your phone, because then they'll eat up a lot of memory. But
Right.
get your camera to take the highest quality of photograph you can. And with the latest, smartphones, a lot of those pictures can be print ready, if they're taken well. Now, there's a lot of aspects that go into it, lighting, if there's glare on the canvas, from any kind of
Like, oh, this is another big thing. Do not varnish.
varnish.
Do
That's
not
what
put any varnish on your paintings until you have taken the photo or the scan, because
Really
you
good
will have
tip.
a really hard time with the sheen. And we always tell artists we work with locally here, before you varnish it, bring it here, let us capture it, and then you can go varnish it and sell it and you'll be good to go. But I think, you don't want to do anything in direct sunlight. You don't want to do anything in direct shade. So you want even lighting. If you can get the box lights and kind of have them at 2 45-degree angles facing the canvas without creating glare, that's a good idea. A good digital camera can work well. We have a Nikon that works pretty well. I think any of the major brands are good. But you can even get, if you have tiny works, you could buy a small scanner and scan your work small. One thing we found with scanning certain things like watercolors is it can wash out watercolors, because watercolor paint is so translucent, and then you're basically shooting light through it and you can lose a lot of the pigment in that process. So you just have to test and kind of figure out what's right. But we have had people have success with their iPhone pictures, which is pretty remarkable in this day and age, that you can get a good print out of an iPhone.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the thing is, it's the camera just keeps getting better and better on the iPhone. I feel like every time they come out with a new update, I'm like, wasn't the camera already amazing? Like,
Yeah.
and so I think that's really great too, and probably reassuring for people that maybe want to get into prints but aren't quite ready to make like the bigger investment of some like a nicer camera or something. I think that's a good just like stepping stone and a good piece of advice to sort of test it out.
And a great starting point really is like, if you're gonna say make all your prints to start off like 11 by 14 and smaller, or even 16 by 20 and smaller, as long as you can get that good raw photo and be able to color correct it, maybe even you outsource the color correction to someone local who can see your painting, or maybe your husband or cousin or somebody can help you with that. As long as you can get a good photo that is at least 300 DPI, the colors look good, then you can make small prints from that without much problem.
Mm-hmm.
The thing you get into problems with is, like, let's say it's an oil painting and you've put a lot of varnish on it and there's just glare everywhere, and things like that become super tricky, and you would definitely need a professional. But smaller paintings like that, I would say, all you can do is fail. You have to just try, right?
Yeah. I think this is all really great advice. One other question I have, and this one's pretty basic, but I think people would ask it, is both like what sizes are common, but also if I was first starting out, it's kind of a business question. I know it's a little bit subjective, but like, would you recommend I offer every single size? Do you recommend I offer like a small, medium, large, just sizes that can easily fit in frames? Like, I know there's probably different ways you can take this question, but what have you seen be successful, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I always say definitely do common sizes. So if you go to our website on the homepage, scroll down, you'll be able to see featured products, and that you'll see our velvet paper, you'll see canvas, you'll see different things. If you click on that, you will see different sizes, and those are kind of common sizes. So, and then you can click on it and see the price. But we can print any size, anything can be possible, but I do list all the common sizes. So things like an 8 by 10, an 11 by 14, a 16 by 20, an 18 by 24, 24
Mm-hmm.
by 36, a 30 by 40. Those are all really common sizes from small to large. As an artist myself, when I started offering prints years ago, I wanted to make it easy for my customer. So I would do a lot of research on frames, like what frames are available at like any place people could get it. Hobby Lobby, Michael's, of course,
Amazon.
Amazon. Of course, there are like tons of online frame places now, and you really can get a frame in any size nowadays. But like, what is, Aunt Sue, she's going to buy a print and then she's going to want to go frame it, at Michael's. So, and all those sizes I listed are pretty common. So I just want to make it easy for my customer. When they buy it, they can frame it, because custom framing can be, as you know,
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And can make, a $50 print turn into a $600 piece of art, which if you have the money, that's great. But a lot of people who are buying prints are maybe not in that income place, so
Exactly.
I want to make it easy for people.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. Cause I mean, I do tell people like a lot of the times you're selling originals and you're selling prints. And if someone's buying the print, they are buying at a lower price point, for whatever reason. It's hard. You need to give them directions for how to then get that framed because they're going to have to get it framed unless they're, it's canvas and you're gallery wrapping it or something. But for the most part, they're going to have to get it framed in some way. And so I love that you're saying like offer common sizes so that they can easily go to Michael's, go to Target, go to, wherever and just pop it in a frame and it's not going to break the bank for them because that can be really difficult and that, can obviously hinder sales too.
Yeah, and that's just something you learn as you go. Another thing I think of when I'm doing this is how do I like shipping things? Do I like rolling a huge print and making sure it doesn't get damaged and things like that? So um, Sarah Jane Tart is a local artist that we work with, and she has just started printing, doing prints recently, and she's done like a small, medium, and a large, kind of like you said. And I think it's a really good idea because you're offering like the 3 different size points. She also has her originals that are at a much higher price point, but the prints are affordable and 3 different options. And I think she can also do like custom orders. So if someone didn't see what they wanted, they could always get it. But it's like, think about the common things. I mean, you always see 8x10s, 11x14s. That's just, I think, a great size to start with. And then maybe something a little bigger and then something large is nice to offer as well. And then think about it like an 8x10, 11x14 is great because you can put it in like a photo mailer with backer boards, and that's really easy to ship. But when you get into something that has to be rolled up, I mean, it's not hard, but you need to have, tubes or boxes. You need to have like the place to roll up a large print.
Right.
A place to sign it, if you're going to sign it by hand or, just like things like that.
Yeah, I think that's so smart, like having systems because shipping is a whole other beast that we don't need to talk about. But I know I talked to one artist and she's like, I just do one size. I do one size because I have my envelopes, my like backers that go in there. Like I just have the system versus and it works for her and people like her one size. I'm not saying you have to do one, but like having just few versus feeling like I need to offer everyone everything. It's like, no, if you give them a few options, they'll find what works for them or they'll contact you. But for the most part, people just want the common sizes. So offer them like 2 or 3 common sizes and make it easier on yourself from just a logistical shipping perspective too.
Yeah, they always say like you
A confused mind says no.
yeah, so it's
Yes.
like you want a cheeseburger or you want a hamburger. That's all we got.
Yep.
We got 2 things.
Yep. Oh, and that's what artists, I think that's a huge question they always ask me about prints is they're like, well, how many should I offer? And I think the gut is if I offer more, I'll satisfy more people, but it's really the opposite. I'm like, you don't need to offer every single size. You don't need to offer every type of paper. Like your average everyday customer doesn't even really know what that means sometimes. So it's
Yeah.
like, offer the paper that you think it looks best on because you're the artist. You can make that decision. And then offer the sizes that are like, easily frameable or whatever, and then call it a day. And then they can make the decision from there and they'll actually be more likely to purchase.
Exactly. I think it's easier. Just offer a couple sizes and that's what you offer. And yeah, it's keep it simple, especially when you're starting out. And once it's just like with anything like that, we now know what people have asked us for. So we've added different things, but the more you hear from people, people start asking more for larger things. And then, oh, I need to offer larger prints. My audience wants larger prints.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't need to offer that if you don't need to. Something I will, a good tip is, like I mentioned, Hope Olson, who we work with in Michigan, she orders all of her prints are quite large for the most part, and she orders on flat canvas. And flat canvas is really cool because you can roll it easily. It won't get, I mean, paper, you can roll easily too, but paper, let's say you order 20 prints and we're rolling them, paper can get kind of brittle and stiff, whereas canvas is much more malleable.
Well, it's fabric basically.
Yeah.
So it's easy to roll.
So it's something to think about if you are ordering like really large prints and then you're going to, ship them to California or somewhere, that I think the canvas stands up a little bit easier just because of that fabric quality to it. Not to say
Right.
you couldn't do paper, but it's just a little bit more flexible, a little bit more forgiving.
Yeah. And that's definitely something important to keep in mind too, depending on what your business structure looks like and sizing and all of that. One last question I had that I've had people ask is when doing prints and, there's obviously like numbered prints, like limited edition, stuff like that. Can you kind of break down what limited edition means for artists that are basic level, know nothing about prints? And then also, do people typically sign their prints, sign them and then get them printed, sign after? Like, what are, I know these are super logistical questions, but I'm trying to think of anything artists might ask.
Oh, yeah. Well, these are really common questions. So everyone's different. Every artist is a snowflake. And so we have some people who want us to remove their signature so that they can then hand sign each one.
The benefit of that really is that if you have made a print that's, 24 by 30, and then you have an art that's 24 by 30, and then you're making a print that's like 8 by 10, which is in that ratio. So your signature on your painting might be like this big, but then it's going to be like this
it's gonna
big.
be like teeny tiny.
Yeah, I
And
didn't even think about that.
And it goes in reverse too. So like, say you made like a 9 by 12 piece of art, but you want to blow it up to 18 by 24. Then your signature like this, but then when it's blown up, it'll be like really massive.
Right.
And like you're not John Hancock. You're not gonna have this giant signature. So typically I say like,
Right.
it's best if we just you don't sign it, or if you have signed it, I'll take it off and then sign your prints. Because it also gives it that element of like special uniqueness
Human
that
touch,
you
yeah.
done it. Yeah, and like unless you're making like 1,000 prints, you probably don't want to sign 1,000 prints. But most people don't go that extreme.
I'd feel
It's
pretty
like,
famous if I was sitting there signing prints all day. I'm not even gonna
like
lie.
a superstar, like all your autograph all these
My autograph.
Yeah.
It's really up to everybody. Like we have so many artists that do it one way or the other. It's complete opposite. It really depends on, do you want the extra step of having to sign each one? Some people don't. I don't sign each one of my prints. I just, at this point, don't see the need. We do have, like I said, we have artists that we remove it, then they sign it. Some people want to actually sign on the border area and do the numbered prints. So a numbered print is basically, you're saying, let's say you're offering your painting called Beach Days at 11 by 14, and you're saying you're only doing 50 of them. So that means you have to keep track of how many prints you've sold. And I tried to do that, and I was terrible at keeping track of it. And I was just like, never mind. And nobody really cares. I'm not that famous anyway. But some people do. And so they sign each one and they say 1/50. And then they're up to 40/50. This is the 40th of 50. I think it does give it somewhat of a, it's a limited edition. I think it does create more value. But unless you're at a place where people know your name, I don't know if it matters. But again, we're all like reaching to get somewhere. So maybe you're nobody today, but in 3 years, that limited edition print could be more valuable. So I think you just have to, determine with your business what's important to you. And just remember, if you do have to sign each one, that is the extra step. And, do you want to do that or not?
And don't forget to not print anymore if you have a limited edition.
Yeah.
Don't print 36, one of 36, and then go print another 20 and be like,
you can print it at a different size though. So I have told people that, like, say you have Beach Days at 11 by 14, 1/50, but you could have Beach Days at, 16 by 20 or whatever the size is. So that's one way around.
Oh, a workaround. This has all been great, and you've answered so many questions, I think high level and sort of the technical little ones that people think about. Is there anything I'm forgetting, like common questions people ask, things that come up a lot that listeners might need to know before they delve into prints, or even if they're already working on prints?
I'm trying to think. I feel like we covered so much. Like I said, just getting that file, right off the bat, whether that be if you're in person with us. I mean, if you're in person with us, we'll make sure it happens. But if you're somewhere else, just getting the help you need to get that great photo, and then ordering a test print to check it. And then once that's done, you really can just reorder easily from there and decide, do you want to print on paper or canvas? Can you think of anything, Chad?
No, not really. No.
Y'all covered a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think that, I sometimes people have questions about different file types, the difference between a JPEG and a PNG versus like a TIFF file or whatever. A TIFF file is typically gonna, that's probably a really good file to print from. It's got the most kind of complexity in the file to help with color and density and stuff like that. A PNG is a great file for like your website. That's going to be like, that's going to it's going to give you the least amount of I want to say like memory. It's going to take a less memory, but have a higher quality for a computer screen. JPEG is universal, kind of all around. I can work with all those files and make them print ready for you, for most people. You know, a lot of times it depends on the integrity of the file when I get it. But if it's a high enough DPI, or even if it's like a low DPI, but like it's a file that maybe you're like, I want to make this like a 9 by 12 or whatever, but and you send me in the files like 100 DPI, but the size of the file, like the actual inches, are like 56 by 40 or whatever. Like then I'm essentially taking the dots per inch, and I'm making them bigger, but and I'm also shrinking it down so it kind of it evens out.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
if you send me like a 5 by 6 at 72 DPI and you want it like 18 by 24, whatever,
It needs to
it's
be, yeah.
probably not going to work, because now I'm expanding both the size and trying to compress those dots per inch, and you're gonna get fuzzy and stuff like that. So there's a lot of confusing things for us. I would say that if you have a question about a file, you can email us the file and we can take a look at it, and we can tell you like if like this will work with what you want. This probably won't work with what you want. Like we are happy to do that for.
Yeah, and I should mention, we have this on our website at the top. It says upload art, and that's going to take you to our professional WeTransfer account. And so you can drop in as many files in there as you can, and we will look at your files for free and let you know if we think they're going to print well and stuff like that. So again, no obligation to order prints or anything, but we can check them. One thing I wanted to mention, when you're ordering gallery wrapped canvases, here's an example, is the wrap on the side. I like a continuous look. So something we offer is mirrored images or an AI version of the side. So this is our dog Henry. With this one here, you can see that he continuously looks like he's going around the edge of the canvas.
Yeah.
So that's something that we find very important. In the older versions of these, there'd be like a solid white or a solid black. Now we can do that. It just doesn't look as great, in my opinion. It doesn't have that continuous look. So that's something we get a lot of questions about, and we'll send you screenshots of examples. Like say you have something very patterned and it's going off the edges, and we will kind of show you how that's going to repeat, or maybe we can take some of that repetition away to give you the best look possible. We can even add like your website and logo on the back of these if you want. So it's just those little bits of attention to detail, where before, when I'd order something like that online, I would either on, whatever printer's website, I would pick like mirrored or blurred, or I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, yeah, I'll take that one. And it would come, and it was like so hideous in person.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, did no one look at this and like think to call me? But
Probably
like,
not.
No, because I'm like one of thousands of people that they're printing for, and they're not going to take the time to call you. So it's just like little things like that. But we do get a lot of questions about the edges of canvases and what that actually means. And it doesn't mean a lot of people think, oh, you're gonna then like be using more of my art, like the dog's gonna, like we're gonna take the front of the dog and put him on the side. No, we extend it, so it's being extended, so you're not losing any of your actual art from the front.
Yeah, and that's huge, and that's something I did not know, to be quite honest. I would have assumed you just would have made the art bigger and like wrapped it around. So
well, I mean, that's traditional. Like, whenever you hear about paintings being stolen, like they're cut out of and then they're retouched. Like the Mona Lisa is like
used to be much bigger.
It was much bigger when it originally was painted, but it's been stolen so many times they just keep stretching it.
Yeah, it's just gonna be this big one day.
Yeah, I know, they steal it again. It's gonna be your face. Yeah, no. So and like Daisy said, we can mirror the sides if you're. There's a lot of conversation about AI and art these days and stuff like that, and we only use AI to help kind of like fill the sides of a painting. We never do anything else to manipulate it. But if people are uncomfortable with that, we can also mirror the sides, which basically means I'll take like a section like here, and then I'll just flip it and then put it next to it so that it wraps around.
Right.
That way you're not, that can sometimes look a little funky, but essentially, one way we can do it as well if people are uncomfortable with AI or anything like that. Or we can just put blank sides too, that's also an option.
And another thing we offer, which is again, just really helpful, is stretch ready, which I don't know if I've seen anybody offer this, but we offered stretch ready, meaning we will print the canvas, add the extra inches that you would need to stretch around stretcher bars, and ship it to you rolled up. So you will not incur the cost of us shipping this stretched canvas, which would be very expensive because of the weight, and it's already all put together. It's stretched around the bar. Let's say you live in California and you order from us and you want it stretch ready. We will add that additional space all the way around. We'll roll it up, we'll ship it to you, and then you can take it to Michael's or a frame shop or whatever, and you can get it stretched around stretcher bars, and it saves you a lot of money.
We had a client, actually, she had like it was fairly large, I want to say 36 by 48 canvas, but her daughter lives in London, and she wanted a reproduction of that canvas, but it's very expensive to ship something like that. Like you get like a mirror box or something. So we made it stretch ready and then rolled it up, put it in a tube and sent it to her. And then she just took it to a frame shop there in London, had it stretched, and now she's got it. So it's like, that's the kind of stuff when we say stretch ready, it's easier to ship because then you're just taking it to your local place to get it stretched. As long as you have someone you can trust.
Yeah, and we always add a lot of extra so that you have
plenty of
extra canvas.
So you're not going to lose. You're not going to just have Mona Lisa's face.
Yeah. We really try to offer as many options to the artist so that your needs can be met. Because some people, there's just different things that have come up, and some people want it stretched and they don't want to have to deal with it, but some people want to stretch it on the other end or want to save a little money here or there or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I love that you offer all these different options. And it's just, even just from this conversation, it's so clear how much attention to detail you put into printing for artists and printing for their needs, not just we're going to make a print business and we're going to print. It's like you're really thinking about every little detail, which I think is huge. I love to end every episode with just a tip or a lesson or something that's helped your business. It can be about prints. It can just be about business in general that you can share with the audience that just might help them in some way.
That's a good one. I should have seen this coming as I've listened to the podcast, but I did not tell Chad about it. I would just say, honestly, I'm not great with the whole marketing and all that stuff, but I treated this business like, I would have in 1960 or something if I'd been around. It's just, we're a mom and pop shop and we deal with people and they're like family friends, so it's just about word of mouth. And the only thing I've done as far as, I haven't done any marketing. It's all been word of mouth and reviews. And then I do share about our clients on Instagram. So it's nothing fancy, but I take video as we're printing and packaging things up and I put it online and I tag the artists and that's it. And it's as simple as that, but artists have sold work because of it. And, so it's just like, common sense, really. It makes total sense, but it's just one of those things like treat business or this as you would have in the olden days, not make it any fancier or more like social media than it needs to be. But it's just like we get to know all these artists and love them and we go and see them at their art shows and we care if they're doing well. If they do well, we do well. If they sell originals and then they need prints and then they order from us, we do well. So that's how we think about it.
Yeah. I don't know. Throughout my life of doing art, and I've done a lot of different things, including performing and comedy and this business. I think for anyone who's creative, I would just say, and it's probably been said before, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be, enjoyable. And sometimes the things that are the most imperfect or the things that seem like the biggest mistakes can be like the greatest inventions that you just haven't recognized. So, just keep creating and, trust in yourself.
Yeah. No, both of those, that was great. I really think it's so true. And I love what both of you had to say. And I think all of this has all been so helpful, such a great just background into prints. And I think you're going to answer so many people's questions and people are going to be knocking down your doors. So thank you both so much for your time. Can you share how everyone can learn more about you, shop your website, or buy prints, all the different things, or order
Sure.
prints, I guess?
Our website is studiogiclee.com, and that's studio and then Giclee, Giclee.com. Same thing on Instagram, Studio Giclee or not .com, but
Just add Studio Giclee.
yeah, at
Yeah.
Studio Giclee. And then I don't know if I should put our phone number on here, but we do have a phone number, which is on the website. So
I'll link the website and people can do with that what they will.
Literally, you can, and don't worry, it's not my personal line, but you can text us like pictures, like, hey, does this look okay?
Yeah.
You know, blah, 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 blah.
And my social security number is
That's how those are the best ways to get up with us. And we are open Monday through Friday, 10 to 5. We try to keep business
Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah. We try to keep business hours, but we do get texts on the weekends and we still answer them because we do love our clients.
Yeah, I love that. And y'all, I'm sure, are just so wonderful to work with. And this has been so great. And I can attest, you've been wonderful. Daisy and I have been emailing back and forth, and you're responsive, you're great, you're all the things these artists are going to want. But you're so, I mean, I can tell you're taking the extra step to really make it such an easy process, but a successful process for the clients that you work with. So I really appreciate your time and your expertise. And I really can't wait to see all the artist prints that get made from working with y'all.